How about a hand for Ryne Sandberg, everybody?
Hey!
Oh, it's so nice of you to stop by and chat with us here at the Cubs convention. And I have to tell you this, this morning, this is a nerdy thing that I usually do. I go on YouTube and I start looking at videos. I start looking at things from the Cubs past, things that I remember happening. But I saw something today that I don't remember, and it was your first hit at Wrigley Field. But you weren't on the Cubs. You're on the Philadelphia Phillies in 1981. You're facing Mike Krukow.
That's right.
You dumped one out into right field because what happened, Leon Durham lost it in the sun. Your first hit in Wrigley Field.
I dumped it out there, but it was a line drive the next day in the box score.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And I got the ball in the bat to prove it.
Was that one of your first major league hits?
That was my first major league
That
hit.
was your first hit?
1981 as a September call-up, Philadelphia Phillies. I got 6 at-bats, went 1 for 6.
Wow.
I actually started the second game of a doubleheader there at Wrigley Field in place of Larry Bowa, who was a starter for the Phillies at the time. Dallas Green, in between games, came up to me and told me, my nickname was Sandy then, it wasn't Ryno, because Harry's the one that started the Ryno thing, so I was Sandy. Sandy, you're starting the game 2 of the doubleheader. So first thing I thought about was, I knew that my bats had not arrived yet from the bat company. This is old school now. They're probably on the...
you had custom bats, you had bats that you...
Well, major league, it was the major leagues.
Right.
But today, when you show up, there's 100 dozen bats for the major leaguers, but this is the olden days.
Right.
So my bats didn't show up, so I actually asked Larry Bowa if he had a bat. You know, I'm starting for you and saying, is there a bat? Do you have a bat I could use? He lent me one of his bats. Got a base hit, went 1 for 4 that day. Like you said, dumped one into right field, but I looked at it as a line drive.
Oh.
But I still have the ball and the bat to prove it.
Wow.
It's Bowa's bat. And the first thing that I did after the game was had that bat in my locker. It's customary to they throw the ball out when you get your first hit. I looked at the ball. Some of the ink was missing on the ball. I said, wow. Then I looked at the bat, and I looked at and the ink was actually on the bat, and you could read National League official on the bat. So I have the bat, the ball. I have clept it, and so my
That's how hard the line
First
drive
hit.
was.
That's exactly right. Squared it up.
I thought you were going to say the bats didn't arrive, so you took some nice white ash from the Appalachian Mountains and carved Wonder Boy into the side of the bat.
Now, if that hit would have happened about 5 years later, and I was a Cub and Harry was doing the game, he might have said, holy cow, Sandberg is so good, he uses the sun to his advantage.
You know, the funny thing about...
they did get in the sun, they lost it out there,
Right.
It was a base hit.
The funny thing about that hit is Jack Brickhouse is doing the play-by-play, and he and Milo Hamilton at the time are in a big conversation about whether Bill Buckner is going to be traded. They never even mention your name. You come up and you get, it's like the first pitch, and you get the hit.
Yeah, first pitch, yeah.
And
that's how nervous I was. The first thing coming at me, it might have been over my head. I might have swung at it. But.
And then Bobby Dernier, who was a Philly at the time, comes up after you, and Brickhouse pronounces his name Dernier.
Thought he was a hockey player. The French center fielder, Bob Dernier.
Well, you know, Lin was saying that you're at the ballpark all the time, and I saw you there a number of times last year. But what's really cool is that you talk to the fans. Fans come up to you all the time. There's a steady stream. You're so gracious with the fans. That's really a cool thing, to be able to be at a game and go up and talk to someone who you admired and saw so many great highlights from, and just to be able to talk to you.
Well, that's my fault, because I asked the Cubs for 2 seats about 20 rows behind home plate. So I have 2 seats, season tickets. I got my section right amongst the fans, and I have a good time with them. So yeah, you know what? I go there to watch the game, and if I'm going to Wrigley Field, I think I would expect some fans. I think it would be odd if nobody came up to me during a Cubs game.
Yeah, when you get to worry when people stop coming up and asking to talk to you.
I expect it. I deal with it. I watch the game. Before a few minutes, taking care of the whole section there, and now we're just cheering on the Cubs. And if something great happens, we're high-fiving up and down the aisles and having fun.
Is this role for you? I mean, you've also become a radio analyst on the Score Sports Radio 670.
Enjoying
you were on
that.
with Mark Rohde last season. After it was fun, you know, after games, get in the car, turn on the radio, and you get the analysis from Mark and from you, and I think that's where I first heard about Sandy being your original nickname.
That's exactly right. That popped up this
that
summer.
popped
Yeah,
up,
unfortunately
and
for me at the time. I like Ryno over Sandy, don't you?
Yeah,
I do too.
That's a much better name.
and you know,
it's a little stronger.
Yeah, no question.
Nicknames are my pet peeve because, you know, you don't get a Wildfire Schultz so much. You don't get an Old Hoss Radborn. They just add IE to the end of somebody's name. I want something else. I want something like Ryno, something fierce. You know,
I thank Harry for that, actually, because up until 21 years old, I would say 3/4 of the people mispronounced my name, and they usually had an A in there, Ryan.
Right.
Oh, right.
So
They still do.
82, 80, on occasion.
Yeah.
82, 83, Harry called me Ryno for the first time. At least it was Ryne and then an O at the end of it, so I liked it. So I jumped all over that, and that was the start of Ryno. So I like that much better. A charging Ryno is much better than a Sandy
absolutely.
nickname.
And the '84 Cubs, everybody was an animal. You had the boa,
That's right.
you
That's right.
had the
bull, zonk.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Now, how are you coping with being a fan in the seat, knowing as much as you do about the Cubs and about baseball? Are you in full second-guess mode when you're watching a game, or can you just sip a beer and go, let it play?
No, you know what? After actually going back to the minor leagues and doing some managing there and coaching and then managing the major league level, I really learned to take on and watch a game completely different. I watched the whole field. I watched both dugouts. I usually have an idea with the pregame show on the score about bullpen availability, things like that, how the game went yesterday. So I kind of think along a little bit more of it. Not really to second guess, but just to more aware of things. So it's much more enjoyable to watch it. Oftentimes, if I've got friends or grandsons with me, I'll give them a little heads up on this pitch. Look for this, or
do you think
watch this swing on this 3-1 pitch.
Do you think your grandsons have any kind of awareness that they're getting prepped for a baseball game from a Hall of Famer, or is it just?
Well, I think they're getting more of a prep of going up in the booth afterwards and being there for the post-game show and listening to that and having the headsets on. So I think that's more of a training than anything.
You know, it occurs to me as we're talking about this, as a player on a team in a game, how does a player watch a game?
As a player?
Yeah, as a player when you're in the game.
Yeah, you know what? For me, it was more about just really watching the pitcher, watching their hitters a little bit. Well, I'm on defense when I'm watching the hitters, but actually playing second base, well aware of who's batting and what their swing is like and anticipation where they like to hit the ball. But in the dugout, really focusing in on the pitcher and what he's throwing. Especially the right-handed hitters early on in the game. I really focused on Andre Dawson. If Jerome Walton was leading off as a right-handed hitter, see what the pitcher had, what kind of fastball he had, breaking pitch.
Yeah.
First time through the orders, how'd he pitch Andre Dawson, how'd he pitch Jody Davis, and then take that information into my next at-bats, but really paying attention to the game. Now, what's odd about that is I can remember one pitch that I did not see in my career. Happened in 1997. I was sitting right next to Terry Mulholland. In between, was I playing in that game? I was playing in the game. So we're at bat, and Brant Brown's at bat, left-handed hitter. And this is before the screen went all the way up to the padded pole up there. So there's a little gap there for 100 years that the Cubs players would look through and there'd be no screen and you could watch the game. I remember looking at the broken crack on the dugout, and the next thing you know, I wore a baseball right on my ear, just missing my temple on a line drive swing off of Brant Brown's. It wasn't even a ground ball, it was a line drive. So I keeled over onto Terry Mulholland, blood everywhere. I was taken in there, and this was in '97, the last year. That was the year I retired. So
holy smokes!
I think I missed about 2 weeks on that with a concussion.
Wow!
Had about 17 stitches put in my ear,
and then you said, "This is it. That's it
for
me."
That was one. Yeah, and also that was one pitch that I missed because I would have reacted. So
oh my God!
Yeah,
you gotta watch every windup.
That's right.
There's a big tip for you youngsters out there sitting in the lower seats. Stay in the game.
Oh, those
Stay in
lower
the game.
seat. Yeah, yeah.
Don't look at the crack in the dugout. Look
No
at what's
question.
happening on the ballpark.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see what they do with the nets, or if they put nets up down to the end of the dugouts this year.
Yeah.
in Major
Yeah,
League
they're
Baseball.
supposed to do that. They're supposed to extend those.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I really do. That ball's coming off those bats. Those bats are hard
100
as a
miles
rock.
an hour.
Yeah, and the
They're
kids are down there
missiles.
looking, and Wrigley Field. It's all about watching the game,
Right.
having conversations, and so people don't always watch the ball.
Before we let you go, and we appreciate you taking time, we know your time has been very valuable today to everybody here. How about having Ryne Sandberg here at the Cubs convention?
Fans are great. The fans are great.
They are. The 2018 Chicago Cubs, what is the key? What do you expect?
I think the key is what their next move might be.
Good answer.
I'm waiting to see. I'm waiting to see the next move. I think they could be one move away to being right where they want to be. So I'm anxious to see what they do.
Well,
I don't think they're done. I
No.
think they have some choices. But I think if they get a starting pitcher and then go with their revamped bullpen that they got and get off to a start,
Right.
I think last year was not a wake-up call for the team, but I think they learned something from last year, and rightfully so. To go all the way in 2016, which I did not have the opportunity to do, but I did in this capacity.
Right.
And then to watch them not only in the off season, but the Cubs convention last year, spring training, April, it was all focus and eyes were on the Cubs. That's tough.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a big target on you when you do that. And so these players handled it very well, but they did not play their best baseball for half of the season. Second half, they got their act together a little bit better, and they got into postseason. And I believe that if in the postseason, if they would have played the Dodgers first and maybe the Nationals second,
That's interesting.
I think they would have beat the Dodgers. But I think they really were spent after that.
Yeah, they were spent after
that very
Nats.
good Nationals team that they
Yeah.
beat, and every pitch and every game was 4.5 hours long.
Yeah.
Went down to 5 games, and it was grueling. I think, and I
It was
think that
grueling
really
for the
took a toll.
fans too.
Yeah.
Nobody
Well,
got no sleep last year, did you?
Yeah, and the Dodgers came in well rested. They had days off. They finished their team off in 4 games.
Right.
They had 3 or 4 days off, and I think that was big. So,
Well,
I think they learned a lot last year.
Yeah, we're
And
definitely
I think they'll be hungry this year. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, so are we.
Yeah.
We're definitely looking forward to the season. We can't thank you enough for stopping
Thanks,
by.
guys.
You
Appreciate
bet.
it.
Ryne Sandberg at the Cubs convention here on 93 WXRT.